Hello, my name is Mira Frisch and I'm the cello professor from UNC Charlotte. In this video, I will be demonstrating and teaching this year's North Carolina Senior Orchestra audition piece for cello, Vivaldi's Sonata No. 1 in B-flat major, movements 1 and 2. I hope you found it helpful for me to play the piece for you. Next, I'm going to be giving you some tips for how to learn and play this piece to the best of your ability. The first thing that I want to talk about is that this piece is written primarily in tenor clef. Tenor clef is the clef that you're going to see if you look at your music, and it should be on the split screen with me right now while I'm talking to you. You can see at the beginning of every line, there is kind of a funny looking, fancy symbol that looks a little bit like a capital B. In the middle, right in the dead center of that capital B, you can see that there's a line on the staff. It's actually the second line from the top of the staff that goes through the center of that capital B. I know I'm saying B, but I actually want you to think of this clef as a C clef. The reason why is because that line, which is the second line from the top on the staff, that line that goes through the center of that symbol is middle C. And that is how we learn how to read tenor clef. Everything is based off the fact that the line that goes through the middle of the tenor clef symbol, if I were to put a note on that line, for example, the third note of the largo is that note. That's a middle C, which we play on cello in first position on the A string with second finger. So I know if you haven't read tenor clef before that you're looking at that note and thinking, but that looks like an F to me, because you're right. A note on the second line on the staff from the top, the second line down from the top, a note on that line in bass clef is an F, but in tenor clef it's a C. So that is the relationship between bass clef to tenor clef. Tenor clef is actually very similar to bass clef, but we read everything up a string. So if I were to play the opening to the largo of this Vivaldi in bass clef, it would look like this. I start on my E flat, and the lowest note I play is B flat on the G string. In order to read that in tenor clef, I'm going to take what I think is bass clef and just move it over by a string, and that's going to place me correctly into tenor clef. So tenor clef is readable if we read bass clef and we just place all of our notes up one string. That works nicely for many of the pitches in this piece. However, if you are asked to play a note that is already in bass clef, if you were to pretend like that note is in bass clef, if it's already on the A string, there is no string higher on the cello to go up a string. So instead, when that happens, we have to count up 5 notes. So let's look for a moment at measure 4, and we're going to look at the highest note in measure 4. There's a 4th finger on that pitch, but if I were just to pretend like I'm in bass clef for a moment and play just that one note, it looks in bass clef like it's middle C. 2nd finger on the A string. Well, in tenor clef, I know I have to go up a string. Obviously, I don't have a higher string. So instead, I'm going to count up 5 notes, and this note is going to be my first note. So here's how I count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I started on a C, but I landed on a G. So that tells me that that note in tenor clef is actually a G. 5 notes higher than how I would have read that note if it had actually been in bass clef. So hopefully, at least one note at a time, you can figure out where all the pitches are in this piece by pretending for a moment that you're in bass clef and either going up a string or counting up 5 notes. When you're first learning to read tenor clef, it is normal to have to write some or all of the letter names above the staff until you get the hang of it. So feel free to do that. Now I'm going to talk to you about a few of the trickiest spots in this piece. So I'll talk you through just the very opening, and I'll demonstrate slowly and make sure you know what position I'm in. So because this piece is in B flat major, I need to start with a backwards extension so that I'm ready to play my B flat on the A string. And I want you to notice that I play B flat in 2 locations, and I did that in the video. I play it as a low 1 on the A string and also in 4th position on the D string. That's the fingering that's in the part that I believe your teachers have given you. And it's also a fingering that's really musical because we get a different color when we play that note on the A string versus on the D string. So I'm starting in 1st position with a backwards extension. Then I'm shifting to 4th position. Going back to half position for that B flat on the A string. I shift up my whole hand a whole step to 2nd position. and back to first position. Here's where it gets a little trickier. The next note is a D, and I know my fourth finger would play that D, but instead I'm going to shift until my third finger is in that spot to play that pickup note, or that D, pick up to measure 3 with my third finger. I'm going to talk to you about how to play this next triplet section as slowly and carefully as I can. So the next 4 notes are in second position. But now I have to shift forward by a whole step. To shift forward by a whole step, I'm going to have my first finger replace where my third finger was. And that takes my third finger correctly to the next place. Now I'm in third position to play the E, the F, and the E, the next triplet. And I can stay put for 3 more notes, F, E flat, D. Now I must go back to first position and get my backwards extension ready. And now I'm going to play again. I'm halfway through measure 3, same position. Now I could play the D with 4, but I need to shift a half step forward and play that with 3 so that I have a finger left over for my E flat. And then E flat again with pinky, shift back on 4, backwards extension. I use an open string, still open. So this is all first position with a backwards extension for B flats. Fourth position. Back to first position with the backwards 1. Now I trill 1 to 3 in half position. And you could stay here, but I like to play that as a contrasting color quieter on the D string, as I did in the demonstration video. Now I'm going to hop back to second position, and I go on fourth position, and then half position, drop my hand, including thumb, into forward extension. So now I'm actually in first position with an extension back. Then I shift forward to fourth position. And I do this but the fingering in the part is actually in some ways simpler than that. This A that you just played with 1, sub 4 and get your backwards extension ready. Trill from 2 to 4, and 1 is already there. Okay, going on, I play this on the A string, so I just cross over with my first finger. So the last note of measure 7 is in the same spot as the first note of measure 8. Whole step shift. Then 1 replace 2. That was second position, stay put. 1 replace 2, third position, first position. So I went fairly quickly through all of that, but that should be pretty simple for you. Things get tricky starting with the pickup to measure 11. So I know you could all find a G with your fourth finger. We're going to scooch up a half step and play that G with third finger. So here's the pickup to measure 11, third finger, G, 4, 3, 1. And remember where you just played that 4? Substitute 1 replacing that 4, and then plop your new 4 down. That'll take you to an in-tune B natural, which is your next note on the D string. But you will need a backwards extension right there. And then we go to first position, B natural. Okay, the accidental carries through the measure. And then 1 replace 4 again. That takes me to my new position, third position to play F, E flat, D, and then I know my E flat hovers around that E flat, but now I have to shift back a whole step. So fourth finger replaces 2. I'm in second position now. Half step, shift back the whole hand to first position. There's a lot of shifting in this piece. I know it's tricky. Going on, I'll reach for my harmonic with third finger. That was fourth position after that. Now I'm in upper second position. 4 is on A. Okay. Stay put. 3, 2, extension 1. And then I need to shift up just a half step to play the next 3 notes of measure 13. That was measure 12. Now I'm on measure 13. I replaced that 1 G with 2. So now I'm in upper second position. I scooch up a half step and keep going. First position. Extension. Shift the whole hand up a half step. No extension. Fourth position. Whole step, shift back. Boy, that's pretty tricky, right? I think you have to be a cellist to understand how often we have to shift and work in and out of an extension. I hope by me showing you how to do that slowly that you're able to figure out a little bit more about what position to be in for this movement. Now I'm going to talk to you about how to learn the allegro movement. I'm going to talk you through the fingerings and positions as I play. Since this piece goes fast and now I'm going to be playing it really under tempo, I'm going to use a different bow for every note. So don't copy these bowings, but hopefully this will be helpful to you for your pitches and your fingerings. So we're going to start this movement in first position with a backwards extension. And you know where D is. Pinky hovers on D, but we're going to do 1 replace pinky. That takes us to third position to play the last 2 notes of the first full measure, 1, 2, 4. Obviously 4 is the beginning of the next measure. Coming down, 2, 1, 2 extension 1, A, bar the finger for a 5th, low 1 for the E flat, same thing, first position, and that measures in bass clef, so be careful. Now where I just played this fourth finger, 1 goes to that spot, and that takes me to third position to play the next note, which is an F, with my fourth finger. And I'm going to play this whole measure in this position. And then instead of playing G with 1, where I know it would be in tune, I'm going to shift down a whole step and play that note with 3. So essentially 3 just replaced 1. Now I go on. So 4 notes in measure 8 are in second position without needing to shift or extend. Now after the open A, I'm in first position where I will stay with a backwards extension for my B flats and E flats. Lots of second fingers as well, right? In this key. First position, but a regular one because of the E flat, it's E natural. And then I will shift to third position, so 1's going to replace 4 again. First position, and then from measure 18, it's pretty straightforward. Just watch your low ones versus regular ones in a lot of this first position work. Going on, some people find this rhythm tricky, so keep in mind that this piece is in 3/8 time, so the 8th note gets the beat. I'm playing it slowly now, but it's 1, 2, 3. And these 16th note triplets are just triplets on beats 2 and 3. So you'll play 1, 2, pull it, 3, pull it, 1, 2, pull it, 3, pull it. So I'll demonstrate that from measure 23. 1, 2, pull it, 3, pull it, 1, 2, pull it, 3, pull it, and so on. Okay? The next hard part that I'd like to skip to is I'm going to start at pick up to measure 29, or really just right after that repeat sign. So I'm going to start in first position, down bow at the tip. We don't always want to be at the frog for down bow. This is just a little down bow, so we want to be near the tip, so we have lots of bow left for the next up bow. Although since I'm going slowly, I'm not going to necessarily do the bowings right now. Above that 4th finger that you just played. Now first position. I'm going to shift forward a whole step so my 4th finger can play A, and I'm going to release the extension. So 1's on C sharp, and then the next 3 notes are in this position, 4, 2, 1. I have to shift my whole hand down a half step. 3 replace 4 gets me a half step. Now I play the last 2 notes of measure 34. 4, 3, crossover, still 4, 3. So those notes were all in 3rd position. Now I go to first position with a backwards 1. And you know where G is. Right here under your pinky, but you're going to 1 replace pinky. So you can follow this fingering. 4, 3, 1, first position. You know where D is. It's underneath your pinky. I want you to think 2, go to the pinky spot. That's how you're going to play all of this in tune in upper 2nd position. Okay? Next, let's take a look at measure 56, starting on a C natural in first position, and then you have a backwards extension 1, and then you have to shift a half step forward. So again, 3 replace 4, so that your 4th finger can be in tune on an A flat. I also released my extension during that shift. So I'll play the next 3 notes of that measure, A flat, G, F, and then E flat. Best place to play that is going to be in 4th position on the G string with 2. Trill, shift back a whole step. The next pickup note can be played right here with 4th finger on the D string and then back to first position. So it's like the beginning after that point. We're going to take a look at measure 72, 73, 74, 75, 76. Okay, I'm just going to play that a little under tempo. I think that's probably all you're going to need. I'm going to be going from first position to 4th position to start, but keeping my backwards extension when I do that. Then release my extension because I have an E natural. First position, low 1. Shift to E flat. First position. Shift up for 1 note and back. Okay, so hopefully with those versions of the piece demonstrated very slowly with a lot of my talking about what fingering to use and what position I'm in addition to being able to watch me demonstrate, and also hopefully being able to read the fingerings that we've posted on the split screen. I've given you always 2 options, a harder fingering and an easier fingering. I demonstrated the harder fingering. The easier fingering would be what I would recommend for students who haven't really been given any individual instruction about how to shift around on the instrument. So I've created a fingering for you that's a little simpler, that makes more use of open strings and first position. Hopefully with all that information, you're going to feel like you can prepare to the best of your ability for your auditions this year, and I wish you the best of luck learning Vivaldi.
Your journey as a musician involves hard work, discovery, and making music come alive. How do you become the musician you want to be? At Davidson Violins, we have the expertise to help you become a great musician. Our studios help students learn fundamental techniques that help them play some of the world's most beautiful music. Our luthiers adjust and repair your instrument to ensure you sound your best. Great instruments, bows, and a wide selection of strings allow you to be at your very best in auditions, orchestras, and your personal enjoyment. Come explore the world of string instruments with our staff of professional teachers, luthiers, and players. Visit us at 102A South Main Street in Davidson, North Carolina, or online at davidsonviolins.com. Davidson Violins is here to help you sound your best.